Yul Moldaur became the back-to-back Winter Cup champion, the national team was named, and international assignments were awarded. For those new here, my name is Kinsley, the host of Neutral Deductions, a podcast all about men's gymnastics.
This is the Neutral Deductions podcast, men's gymnastic news, coverage, and analysis. Hosted by Kinsley Beal.
We already covered everything that happened in night one of Winter Cup, so if you haven't listened to that episode, I encourage you to go to listen to that one first. We are going to cover everything that happened in night two and the final results of Winter Cup that happened in Louisville, Kentucky this past weekend. So coming into night two, Shane Wiskus was leading the all-around, followed by Yul Moldaur, and it was going to be a very close competition. And heading into night two, if you had looked at the points that had been distributed, it looked like Kern Phillips, Taylor Burkhart, Brody Malone, Javier Alfonso, and Jeremy Bischoff were poised to make the senior national team via the 10-point program. So while I was at this competition, I was at the competition live in Louisville, but I was also listening to the broadcast that was hosted by John Roethlisberger and Sam Pejcik, and they gave fabulous tidbits of what was actually happening on and off the competition floor. So we got a little bit more information about why Paul Judah withdrew, and he said he felt a little bit of discomfort in the elbow from doing a Yurchenko double pike block, and so he just decided to rest this competition because it's going to be a long season with NCAA and leading into the Olympics, and just wanted to be precautionary in this instance because he was already pre-qualified to the senior national team. We were also able to confirm that Colin Flores, the freshman at OU, did have an ACL tear from his vault on night one. The competition opened on vault. It was a big contrast to what was actually happening in night one. So night one, we were expecting Paul Judah to go, and everyone looked up and it was Landon Blixt on the podium. And this time, starting off on vault was Yul Moldaur, and he opened with a stuck vault. He had a really big day overall, a 15.4 on P-bars, which was a 4/10 improvement from his day one. Both of those scores are really high level internationally and very competitive. He also improved his all-around score by 0.8 of a point overall. Following him on vault was his teammate Dallas Hale, and Dallas Hale has a beautiful shoe felt vault, which is a Yurchenko 2.5. However, he seemed to have missed his block, and he was only able to do a Yurchenko tucked full. In addition to the battle for the all-around title, which we knew was going to be really close, likely between Yul Moldaur and Shane Wiskus, there were also some other really exciting moments, such as looking for triple backs. And in night two, we saw two different gymnasts compete triple backs on floor. The first was Cam Nelson of Ohio State, and he has long had a gorgeous triple back. Sometimes he also competes at offering as well. Also, a junior gymnast named Gage Kyle showed up with a triple back and a stunning floor routine. It was such a shame that he ended up having a fall without, but he is certainly going to be a gymnast to watch. One of the other most exciting storylines of this competition was Battle Pommel Horse. So there were 4 gymnasts coming in who really could have won the Pommel Horse title, and that was 2021 world champion Stephen Ed Rosick, Patty Hoops of Air Force, Brandon Ding of Illinois, and Ignacio Yockers of Oklahoma. Brandon Ding went up and he ended up scoring the highest pommel horse score of the night. And then Patrick Hoops went up and he hit. But because he had had a better night one, he was in the lead following that rotation. Unfortunately, both Stephen and Ignacio fell, meaning that Patty Hoops ended up winning pommel horse and punching his ticket to the senior national team for the very first time. Brody Malone was stunning on day two. He hit 14 on all 3 of his events. He was beaming when he was named to the national team. Interestingly, on the broadcast, John Roethlisberger and high performance director Brett McClure were talking about how potentially that he would be petitioning for a spot on senior national team through a medical petition. They weren't expecting him to be able to compete. Not only did he compete 3 events here, and he has high bar coming soon on the horizon, but he told us in an interview that he is expecting to do all 6 events by nationals. Kern Phillips of Evo has long been a talent, particularly on high bar. He is certainly one of the best in the world, but his big problem for the last year had been consistency, and you can tell that he's really been working on this. On night one, he scored a 15.95, and on night two, he scored a 16.1. There are very few gymnasts in the world who can top those scores. So should he make that Olympic team, he is certainly going to be a favorite for the podium. A couple other interesting tidbits of the night. So Josh Carnes, who was on the senior development team, ended up making the senior national team outright. He is extremely talented, and I think he's a gymnast that a lot of people overlook or don't know his name yet. So you need to add his name to your watch list. He has been suffering from some injuries, so it's been hindering his training a little bit. but he could be a surprise for one of the alternate spots, I would think, for this year, and maybe looking at one of the Olympic spots outright for 2028 in the US. Fuzzy Bennis was the highest ranked currently competing NCAA athlete, and Mark Williams, his coach, posted that 9 out of the last 15 years an OU gymnast has won the Winter Cup title, including Chris Brooks, Jacob Dalton, Yul Moldaur, and Vitaly Guimaraes. Rounding out the all-around results, Yul Moldaur was in first, followed by Shane Wiskus, Riley Luce, Cameron Bach, Donna Wittenberg, and Fuzzy Bennis. So because Yul Moldaur was already pre-qualified to the senior national team, the following 5 athletes automatically punched their ticket. So all of those I mentioned, Shane, Riley, Cameron, Donnell, and Fuzzy, automatic spots to the senior national team. Then Jeremy Bischoff, Taylor Burkhart, Josh Carnes, Brody Malone, and Curran Phillips earned their spot on the senior national team from the 10-point program. Patrick Hoops was able to punch his ticket to his first ever senior national team because he was the event winner here at Winter Cup, and he had a D score that would have been within the top 3 of the 2023 World Gymnastics Championships. Yul Moldaur, Cole Young, Colt Walker, Fred Richard, Paul Judah, and Asher Hong automatically had their spots reserved because they were bronze medalists of the 2023 World Gymnastics Championships. Landon Blixt and Josh Carnes were previously on the senior development team, which are year-long spots that are assigned in the fall. Because Josh Carnes automatically earned a spot on the senior national team, his spot on the senior development team was open, and that went to Kai Umera, who had the highest D score of any of the athletes aged 18 to 20, and then Landon Blixt retained his spot on senior development team. After the meet, the senior selection committee met and they added Steven Edorosik to the senior national team. Now, the men's senior selection committee minutes haven't been posted as of today, February 27th, so there's going to be a little bit of conjecture here as I postulate as to why he was the one added to the senior national team.
Neutral Deductions is your exclusive gymnastics news platform focused entirely on men's gymnastics. To show your support, please subscribe to Neutral Deductions' YouTube channel and follow us on Instagram.
So, the criteria for discretionary selection was ability to fulfill upcoming international assignments and or contribution to team score scenarios that may be used to determine international assignments. That was number 1. Then category 2 was D scores that are competitive with finalists from major FIG international events in 2023 and 2024. Then number 3 was E scores that are competitive with finalists from major FIG international events in 2023 and 2024. And then the final one was overall competitiveness with top international athletes across major FIG international events in 2023 and 2024. Now, I find that Steven is a really interesting pick. In some ways, I was really surprised to see him be the pick for the senior national teams, and in other ways, I wasn't surprised at all. So in some ways, I think that it's good because the members of the senior selection committee are showing that they believe in him and that making mistakes is not the end of your career. I think that's a really powerful and good message to show athletes on the senior national team. However, we have to talk about the other side of the coin. And I have never in my 10 years of covering men's gymnastics seen them be so enamored with an athlete. And I can't remember another athlete who has fallen so much, who repeatedly gets opportunity after opportunity after opportunity. And I have to wonder how that affects the other athletes and what it says to the other athletes trying to get on national team if they see that hitting really doesn't matter. And this is case in point where I think that the men's program is focusing a little bit too much on D score for this age group. So I want to kind of go through some of the other athletes who I think could have been potentially a better pick or just a different pick. Now, the senior selection committee has done nothing wrong here. They have followed their procedures. I want to be adamant and clear about that. But I do think it sends a very confusing message to athletes when you repeatedly have an athlete fall in international competition. And it's like, it doesn't matter because they could be Olympic champion, which is true. Steven could be Olympic champion if he made the team. But the problem is he falls about 50% of the time. So Cam Nelson was the vault event winner, and he has a 5.6 and a 5.2 difficulty vault. So at both of the World Cups so far this year, at Cottbus and Cairo, we have seen people make the event final with a 5.2 and 5.2 vault. And we also actually saw at the 2023 World Championships that Kevin Penev got in with a 5.2 and 5.2 vault. And I actually think that this would have been a really good pick for the senior national team because you have an athlete who has been the only one the past 2 years to consistently compete 2 vaults and he's doing so at a competitive level, and he was the event winner. So every other event winner ended up making the senior national team except for him and Alex Diab. Another person that I think would have been really interesting to put on senior national team instead of Steven would be Ignacio Jockers. So both Ignacio and Steven hit on day 1, but they didn't hit on D2. However, Ignacio Jockers had the highest difficulty score out of any of the competing athletes. And I think that it's really interesting that he wasn't chosen, because in the qualification for Winter Cup, there were several athletes that could have been chosen to fill 2 or 3 spots, and they ended up going with Patty Hoops and Brandon Dang because they had the highest D score at the qualifying competition. Again, emphasis on D score, not D and E score. Jockers was the only one of those 3 who actually hit his routine in the qualifying competition and actually beat out Patty Hoops. But instead, the selection committee decided to go with the highest D score. So it's interesting that for the qualifying into Winter Cup, they decided to go for the highest D score, which ended up paying off because Patty Hoops won. But when choosing a spot on national team, they didn't go for highest D score, which I just find very confusing and conflicting overall. Another person I think that they could have put in for Steve was Brandon Dang. He hit both days and he had the highest score on day 2. 2 more athletes that I think could have filled that spot would have been Alex Diab and Javier Alfonso. So Alex Diab trains at Evo. He's an Olympic alternate. Javier Alfonso is an up-and-coming gymnast at Michigan. Both of these athletes were higher in the points than Steven Nedorosek, and they competed like 6-1, 6-0 at Winter Cup. And at Cairo, the range of people making finalists was 5-9 to 6-2, so both in that range. And then at Cottbus, it was 6-0 to 6-3, again, both in that range. And Alex Diab was the event winner. I think Javier was also on the podium. And so they hit both days. And so, again, they did nothing wrong selecting Steven Nedorosek. Steven Nedorosek has huge potential. He's a 2021 world champion. He can be Olympic champion. But again, what message does it send to your athletes if you consider D score more important than consistency? We'll go ahead and move on from that topic, but that's just something to keep in mind and discourse for future selection for national team. As of today, USA Gymnastics has released the international assignments. So Patrick Hoops is going to the Baku World Cup with Steven Nedorosek. Steven Nedorosek is also going to the Doha World Cup with Curran Phillips. And I think this is going to be really, really, really important for Steven. So as I mentioned, he's had kind of a rough past couple of years with consistency, and I think that if he can show up to these 2 World Cups and he can hit both days and get on the medal stand, then I think that will, in the people who are selecting the Olympic committee, even though these don't actually count, it will sort of provide a stepping stone for him to show, hey, I can be consistent. The same for Curran. So Curran Phillips has had some consistency issues over the past year. He hit 2 for 2 at Winter Cup, which is great. I think him hitting 2 for 2 at Doha and topping the medal stand over the likes of Oleg Vernayev and Ilya Kovtun, that would make a really big statement to put him on the team and say, hey, I'm competing with the best of the best here. The U.S. is also sending a huge contingent to Stuttgart, Germany. So Cameron Bach, Riley Luce, Yul Moldaur, Curran Phillips, and Shane Wiskus are on the DTB Pokal senior men's team. So this is the event that they won over Japan last year. This is also the event where Brody Malone got injured. So that team will be looking to win gold again. They are also sending a junior men's team, including Sasha Bogonosuk, Xander Hong, Kiriman Deva, Preston Nye, and Nathan Roman. And then Kai Umira and Fuzzy Bennis are going to the DTB Pokal Mixed Cup. So they will be competing with a couple of the American women, including Nola Matthews, Addison Veta, and Dulcie Kaler. Now, this is what's really, really, really exciting for me is the USA Gymnastics is actually sending more men than they are sending women. And I am so grateful for this. And I think that this is a wonderful step forward, giving the men's program many wonderful opportunities to prove themselves and test themselves on the international stages. Before moving on from Winter Cup completely, I do want to take a moment and talk about what happened at the Elite Team Cup. So the Elite Team Cup is a set of junior elite athletes who compete for their region. So they are selected. So for example, like Region 1 is the California region, and Region 8 is the Florida region, and Region 3 is the Texas region, and so on and so forth. So Region 1 opened the competition and they were incredibly impressive on floor. Riot Reynolds stuck his dismount And I really thought that they were going to three-peat this championships. A couple of highlights overall from the competition. I thought Karamandeva had lots of height on his high bar, particularly his Tkachev. It was really nice to watch. Nick Cruz had a beautiful iron cross position. Justin Park had an Azarian cross and a stuck dismount on still rings. Gauge tile tumbling is superb. Everyone should go look him up on YouTube. It's really, really good. A moment of hilarity was Connor Heary. He was doing a split and he did a split out of bounds, and I'm calling it toe perfection to a fault. And what it looks like on the camera is that if he had just had normal men's toe point, that maybe he wouldn't have gone out of bounds. But his toe point's really, really good, and it looks like his toes end up touching the floor just over the line. And I mean, if you're going to get an out of bounds neutral deduction, you might as well do that with beautiful execution as well. And he also on still rings had a beautiful, I can't remember if he did Jonathan first and then Yamawaki to double front pike dismount or the other way around, but it was the most fluid, gorgeous combination, and I can't wait to keep watching him as a gymnast. So at the end of the competition, Region 3 won, Region 8 was in second, and Region 1 was in third. But there was actually a lot of drama with this. So at the conclusion of the competition, I found out about this on social media where Kevin White, who's the Region 8 chairman, posted this quote: "It has been brought to our attention that there was a judging error at last night's ETC championship. As hard as we fought and did all of the things we possibly could to put our team at the highest podium finish, a mistake in an inquiry on pommel horse, which elevated our team score by 0.3, is what ended up putting our Region 8 team as the second place team finishers instead of third. We always want our athletes to believe in what they've accomplished and to know that we will handle ourselves with the highest integrity possible. We would like to make this public statement that we recognize the error and also recognize Region 1 as the true second place team at last night's competition. Their staff and athletes deserve to have their work and efforts recognized and rewarded. Region 8 acknowledges the error and accepts the finish against an exceptional Region 1 team as they showed to be. Make no mistake that we will be aiming to rightfully claim that title ahead of them next season. Congratulations, Region 1, until next year." So I asked USA Gymnastics for a statement, and they said, "After the conclusion of competition, it was determined that a judging error had occurred on pommel horse. USA Gymnastics rules do not permit altering scores after the competition has ended, and the error was not realized until several hours after the end of competition. Region 8 acknowledged that error that occurred in their favor that impacted the rank order of the finish for the teams." So just a little behind the scenes drama that happened in the junior competition. Moving on a little bit to the winners. So Region 3 won, as I stated, they have historically been a powerhouse in this competition. This was, however, their first win since 2021 when older brothers Asher Hong and Vishal Mandeva were on the team. The 2024 Winter Cup junior men's champion was Jun Iwa, and he finished with an all-around score of 80.186, which is huge for a junior. Nathan Roman took silver and Karen Mandeva won bronze.
Neutral Deductions recently launched this year and is entirely funded by listener contributions. If you'd like to support the show and help promote men's gymnastics, kindly consider making a donation through the PayPal link provided in the show notes. All donations are greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Moving on to the Cottbus World Cup that happened in Germany at the exact same time as Winter Cup. So quick update on the Americans. The only American to make a final was Koi Young, who made, shockingly, the parallel bar final, not the pommel horse final. When he was doing his pommel horse routine, something happened with his dismount, and he ended up getting about a half-tenth in deductions, which would have easily put him into the final if he had not messed up his dismount. It seems that maybe some of the other athletes were just cold, having a bad time, jet lag, something like that. Those performances are not really consistent with what Colt Walker and Asher Hong typically put up. So hopefully that's just a fluke competition, and we'll see them back strong for both NCAAs and also nationals in Texas. A couple of updates on the World Cup circuit front. So Lee Chi-kai did not make finals, so his only option right now to make it to the Olympic Games is all around at Asian Championships, but it is not going to be easy. So Roo Sung-yeon, who is currently leading the total on floor for the World Cup series, he could win the all-around title there if he doesn't end up qualifying through the World Cup Championships. Khabibulou Urgashev of Uzbekistan is also strong, and Ivan Teknahom of Azerbaijan, and several others as well. The highlight of the meet for me was Bart Durlow's final high bar routine. He had a talk half to a Coleman to a Kovacs to a Cassina, and I cannot tell you how wild this combination is, and he stuck his dismount. So Bargerlow was a 2017 world high bar medalist. He hasn't made the high bar podium since then, but I'm like, he is coming for those high bar finals and a spot on the podium with this routine. So that's really, really exciting to see as well. The event winners of the Cottbus World Cup were Harry Hepworth from Great Britain on floor. And truthfully, after his performance here, I honestly cannot see an Olympic team without Harry Hepworth on it. Nariman Kurbanov won pommel horse ahead of Ahmed Abu Al-Soud of Jordan. Nikita Simonov of Azerbaijan won still rings. Artur Davtyan of Armenia won vault. Ilya Kovtun of Ukraine won parallel bars. And Tong Chi-hung of Taiwan won high bar. If you would please take a moment and rate and review us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcast. It really does help us out and helps others find Neutral Deductions and learn more about men's gymnastics. If you would like to help bring more live men's gymnastics coverage, please consider donating. We are entirely listener supported at this point, and even $10 helps. If you are able and willing to help, the PayPal link is in every single show note and at the bottom of every article on Neutral Deductions, and you can also donate via Stripe if you don't have a PayPal account. If you have any questions, comments, or insider tips, you can email us at neutraldeductions@gmail.com. That's all for this week. We'll see you next time.